ॐ विश्वन्दर्पण दृश्यमान नगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्वोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवात्वयम् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तन्तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठम् अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे। नमः श्री परमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रिय ब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे हुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः। प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः। पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितं। लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिनः श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुदः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थित तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः. I welcome you all to the 21st class of our study of the Bhagavad Gita. We will read the 41st verse of the second chapter. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi
व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः
एकेह कुरु नन्दन
एकेह कुरु नन्दन
बहुशाखा ह्यनन्ताश्च
बहुशाखा ह्यनन्ताश्च
बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम्.
बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम्.
In this verse, as we saw in the last class, Bhagavan is contrasting an informed spiritual seeker versus a materialist. Bhagavan is contrasting the clarity of vision of an informed spiritual seeker as compared to the numerous confusions and misconceptions and meanderings of a materialist. So when we talk about clarity of vision, there are degrees of clarity. As we saw in the example, in case of a student who is faced with a multiple choice question. When the student has got less clarity, and when the student is utterly confused about the subject matter, then all the choices will appear to be equally good to such a student. On the other hand, if the student is somewhat clear about the subject matter, then he can eliminate the obviously wrong choices. But still there may be a few left that he is struggling with, and he may feel that all of them are equally good. But then somebody who is totally clear about the subject matter, his mind will zero in on the right choice, eliminating all the other choices. That's why Bhagavan says, Vyavasayatmika buddhihi eka bhavati. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi means clarity of vision, and it is eka. Eka means badhika, the eliminator of all the wrong choices, eliminator of all the improper choices, eliminator of all the meanderings and distractions of the mind. And therefore, an informed spiritual seeker has got this clarity of vision. Clarity of vision with regards to what? With regards to the goal of life, and with regards to the intermediate goals that are required to reach that final goal of life, and also the means required to reach each of the intermediate goals and also the final goal of life. So what is this clarity of vision of an informed spiritual seeker? An informed spiritual seeker has only one goal, and that goal is moksha. Because all of the other goals, like arthaha, kamaha, dharmaha, for the sake of arthaha and kamaha, they have all been eliminated as not wise choices for one's goal. Because they are all anityaha. They can never give me the purnatvam that I am seeking. They are all like decorating the broomstick. The broomstick, even if it's highly decorated, remains a broomstick. An apurnaha individual, no matter how highly decorated he or she is with arthaha and kamaha accomplishments and dharmaha accomplishments for the sake of arthaha and kamaha, this person remains like a highly decorated broomstick. Because he is highly decorated with arthaha and kamaha and dharmaha for the sake of arthaha and kamaha, but he continues to remain the same apurnaha individual. So this is very clear to an informed spiritual seeker, and therefore his goal is one, which is moksha, because he knows that Brahman is the nitya vastu that I am seeking. Everything else is anitya. Every other accomplishment is mixed with these three doshas of dukkha mishritatvam, mixed with sorrow, atriptikaratvam, it leaves me unfulfilled. Apurnaha and bandhakatvam, it makes me more and more dependent upon the world, which is unstable. Anitya. And therefore he has zeroed in on moksha as his ultimate goal. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi eka bhavati. And it's not just with regards to the goal, but the means to accomplish the goal also he is very clear. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi eka bhavati. So he knows that moksha is the only goal, but moksha is also eka sadhana sadhyam, means that it is accomplished only through one means, and that means is jnanam and jnanam alone. Why? Because when the goal to be accomplished is already accomplished but not known as accomplished, then the only means to accomplish that goal is to know that it is already accomplished. Like the lady with the necklace who was trying to become the lady with the necklace because she thought the necklace was lost. So in her vision, she was the lady without the necklace. She was not the lady with the necklace. So the lady with the necklace was trying to become the lady with the necklace. And the only way the lady with the necklace can become the lady with the necklace is to know that she is already the lady with the necklace that she is trying to become. There is no other becoming that is possible. So similarly, in the vision of Vedanta, I am already Purnaha, limitless, full and complete. And I have taken myself to be Apurnaha. I have mistaken myself to be Apurnaha, and now I am trying to become Purnaha. So the only way one can become Purnaha is to know that I am already Purnaha. There is no other way to become Purnaha. And therefore, when ignorance is the problem, knowledge is the only means. When self-ignorance is the problem, self-knowledge is the only means for fulfillment, for this lasting fulfillment. And therefore he knows this moksha is also eka sadhana sadhyam, and that sadhanam is jnanam and jnanam alone. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi eka bhavati. But now jnanam becomes an intermediate goal for him. So now the question is, what is the means to reach this intermediate goal? And he is also again very clear that jnanam, any jnanam arises through an appropriate pramanam. A pramana is required, a means of knowledge is required. So jnanam is the intermediate goal. How do I gain this jnanam? It is possible only through the Shabda Pramana of Vedanta. That reveals my true nature as being Purna. So this jnanam is only possible through the Shabda Pramana of Vedanta and not through any other pramana, because all of my senses are outward directed. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi eka bhavati. And therefore, the mumukshuhu, the seeker of moksha, must become a seeker of jnanam, a jigyasuhu, and a jigyasuhu who is a seeker of Jnanam must become a seeker of Shravanam, Shushru. Because only in the Shravanam is there the employment of the Shabda Pramana of Vedanta. But then he also knows that for this Jnanam to arise, a certain preparedness of mind is required, Jnana Yogyata is required, Chitta Shuddhi is required. This Chitta Shuddhi is Aneka Sadhana Sadhyam. The Chitta Shuddhi can be accomplished through multiple means, but all of those means come under the umbrella of what is called Karma Yoga. And therefore, he takes up Karma Yoga for the purpose of Chitta Shuddhi, where the purpose of all of his karmas become this Chitta Shuddhi, Jnana Yogyata Praptihi, Manojaya. So again, the purpose of all of his karmas is one, which is to gain Chitta Shuddhi, Jnana Yogyata or Manojaya. So a Karma Yogi eventually gains this total clarity about moksha being the only goal and the means to accomplish this goal through the intermediate goals. A Karma Yogi gains this clarity eventually, total clarity eventually. In the beginning, a Karma Yogi may not have this entire clarity, but he has some understanding that for moksha, jnanam is required, or jnanam chitta shuddhi is required, and therefore I should work for chitta shuddhi, and therefore he takes up Karma Yoga for the purpose of chitta shuddhi. And how does he gain this Chitta Shuddhi? If we look at what is Chitta Shuddhi, it is really purification of the mind, which implies that there are some impurities. So what are the impurities of the mind? The impurities of the mind are my own ragas and dveshas. He understands this. Because all of the emotional turmoil that is caused in my mind is not because of the world, but it is because of my dependence upon the world. And my dependence upon the world is brought due to these ragas and dveshas, because of my likes and dislikes. And therefore, his goal, the goal of his karmas, becomes the neutralization of his own ragas and dveshas, and not as much the accomplishment of things in the world. And therefore, he embarks on a twofold assault on his own ragas and dveshas, to say figuratively. How in the choice of his actions are not governed by his ragas and dveshas, likes and dislikes, but his actions are governed by swadharma. So even if I don't like it, I do something because it is my dharma. And therefore I develop a distance from my own dvesha towards that action. And even if I like to do something, if that happens to be adharma, then I don't do it. And thereby I develop a distance from my own raga. And therefore, in the choice of my action, I develop a distance from my own ragas and dveshas. I'm weakening their hold on my personality. And similarly, at the time of experiencing outcomes, he regulates the response with a sameness of mind, whether the outcome is better than expected, the same as expected, or opposite of what is expected. Thereby, he again develops a distance from his own ragas and dveshas. So by this, one releases the hold of the ragas and dveshas and the hold that they have on my personality. This is what is called neutralization of the ragas and dveshas. This is what is called chitta shuddhi. Once he gains this chitta shuddhi, once he gains the jnana yogyata, then he will find the same shravanam. Whatever the Guru is talking about during shravanam hits home very hard. The truth that is being revealed will now become his own truth. It is not the truth that the Shastras are talking about, but he will understand it to be a fact. It becomes his own assimilated truth. And therefore, now he comes to the Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, or the clarity of vision of an Atmajnani. An Atmajnani too has clarity of vision. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi eka bhavati. It removes all the misconceptions and notions that this person had about who I am. So he knows that I am the one non-dual Brahman that is full, limitless, complete. I belong to a higher order of reality. I cannot be affected by any event that takes place within this body or the body mind or in the world, because they all belong to a lower order of reality. So this jnanam arises, and this is the vyavasayatmika buddhi of an atmajnani. So this clarity of vision one comes to eventually if one follows Karma Yoga. But then Bhagavan contrasts this with the multi-branched confusions and the endless struggles of a materialist, the endless seeking for fulfillment of a materialist that never ends. Why? Because he is not clear about the goal. There is no vyavasayatmika buddhi. He is like the student who is unclear and extremely confused about the topic. So when he is presented with multiple options, all of them look like good options. And therefore, for him, moksha is not a goal. And when moksha is not a goal, then the goals become three: arthaha, kamaha, and dharmaha, for the sake of arthaha and kamaha. So they become bahushakhaha, multi-branched. And each of these pursuits is endless. In fact, each of these pursuits is bahushakhaha. Each of these pursuits is multi-branched. When we come to arthaha, there's a pursuit of wealth, security, status, position, power. When we come to kamaha, there are various kinds of sense pleasures. Seeing what is pleasant, hearing what is pleasant, smelling what is pleasant, tasting what is pleasant, touching what is pleasant. Pleasures of the senses are bahushakha. And then there are intellectual pleasures like we talked about. One gets into the study of aparavidya. Aparavidya is bahushakha. One can get into scientific research, for example. Scientific research gives a lot of intellectual pleasure to the person, but it comes under kamaha purushartha. It comes under kamaha. It's a form of intellectual pleasure. People spend hours working on riddles and puzzles. Comes under kama purushartha. Even the study of Vyakaranam, the study of Sanskrit, can become kama purushartha. One may start with a noble goal, having the end in mind that I want to learn Sanskritam, I want to learn Vyakaranam for the purpose of studying Vedanta. But then the study of Vyakaranam itself is bahushakha and anantaha. One can get into Panini Sutra, one can get into Mahabhashyam, one can get into Ashtadhyayi, and this can keep going. And this gives so much intellectual pleasure that the person loses sight of the goal, the primary goal, which is moksha. And therefore, this can become Bahushakha and Ananta. Like we saw, this is what Bhagavad Pada criticizes, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrin Karane. So the study of aparavidya, various forms of aparavidya is bahushakha and anantaha also. There are sub-commentaries, there are commentaries, sub-commentaries and sub-commentaries that one doesn't have, one cannot cover in lifetimes for any one discipline, like whether it be Vyakaranam or Jyotisha, any of these disciplines. And therefore, Bahushakhaha, Anantaha cha, these materialists, so they effectively become a materialist. Therefore, such people, they get caught up in these pursuits. And now Bhagavan is continuing with his criticism of those who are materialistically oriented. We will read verses 42 and 43. 42 and 43 together. Yamimam pushpitam vacham
यामिमां पुष्पितां वाचम्
pravadantya vipaschitah
प्रवदन्त्यविपश्चितः
vedavadarataः partha
वेदवादरताः पार्थ
नान्यदस्तीति वादिनः
नान्यदस्तीति वादिनः
कामात्मानः स्वर्गपराः
कामात्मानः स्वर्गपराः
जन्मकर्मफलप्रदाम्
जन्मकर्मफलप्रदाम्
क्रियाविशेषबहुलाम्
क्रियाविशेषबहुलाम्
भोगैश्वर्यगतिं प्रति
भोगैश्वर्यगतिं प्रति.
We'll come to the specifics of these two verses. But before that, there is some background that we need to understand and appreciate the meaning of these verses. So a couple of things we need to understand. The first is that the Vedas talk about a variety of karmas. And at a high level, we can classify the karmas into three. Sattvika karmas, Rajasa karmas, and Tamasa karmas. So if we take the Sattvika karmas first, then the question is, so these are all classified based on the ability of the karma to produce spiritual growth. That is the primary means, the primary basis of this classification. So if we look at Sattvika karmas, then the first question is, what are its benefits? Why are these karmas talked about? So Sattvika karmas primarily contribute to one's inner growth, to one's spiritual growth. And they are not meant for material growth, not meant for seeking arthaha, kamaha, like wealth, position, power, security, status, children, swarga, etc. They all come under material goals. So Sattvika karmas are not meant for these purposes, but meant primarily for one's chitta shuddhihi, spiritual growth, inner growth. So the benefits, like we said, include chitta shuddhi and inner growth. These are subtle benefits that are not visible to our senses. But if one engages in these karmas, then one surely gets the inner growth. Then the next question is, are these selfish or selfless? So we say that they are not selfish karmas because they are not based on my own ragas and dveshas. Because ragas and dveshas are primarily meant for altering the world in keeping with my likes and dislikes, those kinds of karmas. These are not those kind of karmas. They are not based on my ragas and dveshas. And they are paropakara karmas also. They involve some element of paropakara. Paropakara means some element of helping some individual or beings outside of myself. And therefore, they are not selfish karma, not raga dvesha based karma, and also not meant for artha and kama. So again, they are not selfish. And if you look at the names these karmas are given in the Vedas, then they are called Nitya Karma. Nitya Karma or Naimittika Karma. Nitya Karma are karmas that are done on a daily basis. Naimittika karmas are karmas that are done when some special occasion is there. They are also called Nishkama karmas. Nishkama is an important word. So they are called Nishkama karmas. Then what are the examples of these type of karmas? The examples of these type of karmas are yajnaha, various kinds of homas and pujas, worship, etc. will come under yajnaha. Reverential offerings, basically. An example of these is Pancha Mahayajna, which involves Deva Yajnaha, reverential offerings to Ishvara. Pitri Yajnaha, reverential offerings to one's own ancestors. Brahma Yajnaha, reverential offerings to the rishis. And any kind of Adhyanam of the scriptures and all Shastras will come under Brahma Yajna. And Manushya Yajnaha, offerings, reverential offerings to one's fellow human beings, and Bhuta Yajnaha, reverential offerings to the beings all around me, and for the sake of the environment. So this is Yajnaha, and then there is Dhanam. Dhanam is various forms of giving that one can take up. And Tapaha, which are austerities. Austerities that one takes up. Austerities means voluntarily giving oneself discomfort of some sort, or giving up comforts for some time for the sake of one's inner growth. So these are examples of sattvika karmas. And are they compulsory in the vision of the Vedas? So according to the Vedas, yes, they are compulsory karmas that have to be done. And Bhagavan says in the Bhagavad Gita also, Yajna dana tapah karma na tyajyam karyam eva tat yajyo danam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam. This verse is going to come in the Bhagavad Gita. Pavanani manishinam, meaning these are the karmas that purify you. They bring about chitta shuddhi. So now what is the grade of these karmas amongst the three karmas? Sattvika, Rajasa and Tamasa karmas. These are considered to be the Uttama karmas, or the karmas that are most efficacious for one's internal growth, for one's spiritual growth, because they involve selfless acts. And they are not based on my ragas and dveshas. They are not determined by my ragas and dveshas. One does it because the Shastra is telling me to do it. And therefore, they help in loosening the hold of the ragas and dveshas on my personality. Then the next karmas are Rajasa karmas. So if we look at it from the standpoint, the same classification, what are the benefits? The Rajasa karmas are primarily meant for the sake of artha and kamaha, for the sake of material accomplishment in the world. So can they be considered to be selfish? So yes, they can be considered to be selfish because they are based on my ragas and dveshas. My ragas and dveshas want to accomplish artha and kamaha in this world. And therefore I am doing it for the sake of my ragas and dveshas. And for the sake of this individual, this limited individual, they are done for the sake of the ragas and dveshas of this limited individual. So they are selfish karmas. And they are alternatively called sakama karma or kamya karma. So the earlier sattvika karma, nishkama karma, whereas rajasa karmas are sakama karma, or they are also called kamya karma in the Vedic parlance. So earlier we called it nitya naimittika or nishkama karma, and these are sakama or kamya karmas. So are they compulsory? So in the vision of the Vedas, these are not compulsory karmas. If one has ragas and dveshas for a particular, to accomplish something in the world in terms of wealth or children or a status or position or health or swarga, whatever it be, then one can take up this karma. The Vedas don't say do it, and they don't also say don't do it. So they leave it up to you. But the benefits are only artha and kamaha. They don't lead to one's spiritual growth. That is what we have to understand. So what are examples of these karmas? So examples of these karmas are like, for example, for wealth, there's a homa called avahanti homa. If that is done, then one can get wealth, one can improve one's business situation if the business is not doing well. All kinds of material prosperity. Or if one wants a child, one can do a putra kameshti yaga. Or for good health, there is ayushya homa. Or if one wants swarga, then jyotishtoma yaga is the jyotishtoma yaga. So all of these different karmas are there, which come under rajasa karmas or kamya karmas or sakama karmas. And what is their grade when it comes to spiritual growth? So these, the earlier sattvika karmas or uttama karmas, these are madhyama karmas, in the sense they help you accomplish something in the world, but more or less they stagnate you spiritually. So contribution to spiritual growth is not there as much as the sattvika karmas. And moreover, since they are driven by one's own ragas and dveshas, one is acting according to one's ragas and dveshas, they don't help in the dilution of the ragas and dveshas. Then the third kind of karma are tamasa karmas. And tamasa karmas, if you look at it from the same classification, benefits. If you do some of the tamasa karmas are really prohibited actions. And if one does it, one may gain something materially. But then one has a spiritual downfall. So are they selfish? Yes, they are selfish because again they are based on ragas and dveshas. And are they compulsory? No, on the other hand, they are actually prohibited. You should not do those karmas. They are called nishiddha karmas also. If you look for, so tamasa karma, nishiddha karmas. And what are examples of this? So something that involves lying, something that involves hurting, drinking, etc. They all come under tamasa karmas, nishiddha karmas. And what is the grade of these karmas? When it comes to spiritual growth, these karmas, tamasa karmas, lead to spiritual downfall. Therefore, they have to be avoided altogether. So Vedas talk about these karmas. And the Rajasa and Tamasa karmas, since they are a product of one's own ragas and dveshas, they lead to the perpetuation of one's own ragas and dveshas, and therefore to the perpetuation of the limited individual. And therefore, they don't lead to spiritual growth. One continues in samsara. So this is the background on the karmas that the Vedas talk about and their classification. And now there is another point that the Vedic teaching brings out. And Bhagavad Gita also talks about it. So the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita is that the material accomplishments are not enough for one's peace, security, and happiness. Material accomplishments are not enough. Because if the material accomplishments are enough for one's peace, security, and happiness, are the cause of one's peace, security, and happiness, then wherever there is material accomplishment, whenever a person is materially accomplished, that person should be peaceful, secure, and happy. And wherever there is less material accomplishment, that person should not be peaceful, not be secure, not be happy. But then, in our own culture, and especially in our culture, we see people, like we have sadhus, for example. you go to, that's why we say we should, that's why our Shastras talk about pilgrimages to spiritual places, because in such places we can see sadhus. And when we see the sadhus, what material accomplishment do they have? They hardly have any possessions. But they are peaceful, secure, and happy. On the other hand, especially in the Western culture, and even in our country, there is no lack of such people, where we have billionaires and trillionaire now. Even now, there is a trillionaire also now, 1 trillionaire in the world. So if we look at the billionaires and trillionaires, they have lots of material accomplishments. But then we can clearly see people are not at peace with themselves, not secure, in spite of so much material accomplishment. Always they are worried about what's going to happen, and not happy. So this should make us think that if the material accomplishments are not the cause of peace, security, and happiness of an individual, then what is it that brings about this peace, security, and happiness? So our Shastras are very, very clear on this, that it is one's internal growth, inner growth, spiritual growth, that is the cause of peace, security, and happiness, not one's material growth. So this explains why we can find sadhus who are very happy with hardly any possessions. And we can find billionaires and trillionaires who are still not at peace, not secure, not happy with themselves, in spite of so much material possession, because cause of this peace, security, and happiness is one's inner growth. So if inner growth is there, one can be peaceful, secure, and happy with very less. But if inner growth is not there, then one can never find that peace, security, and happiness, even with enormous material accomplishments. So our Shastras say that more than what you have, it is what you are. More than what you have, it is what you are that determines your peace, security, and happiness. I'll repeat this. More than what one has, it is what one is that determines peace, security, and happiness. And therefore, now with this background, let us come to this particular verse. So here, verses 42 and 43, if we do the padachhedaha, so it is yam, imam, pushpitam, vacham, ravadanti, avipaschitaha, vedavadarataha, partha, na anyat asti iti vadinaha, na anyat asti iti vadinaha, कामात्मानः स्वर्गपराः जन्म कर्म फलप्रदां क्रिया विशेष बहुलां भोगैश्वर्य गतिं प्रति. So Bhagavan says, if you look at the third quarter of the 42nd verse, Bhagavan says, Hey Partha, Hey Arjuna. And in the second quarter of the 42nd verse, we have Pravadanti. Pravadanti means they say. They say. So who say? The materialistic people, they say. And Bhagavan gives 5 descriptions of the materialistic people. 5 descriptions. And what are they? Bhagavan says, Pravadanti avipaschitaha. In the first line of the 42nd, towards the end, we have Pravadanti avipaschitaha. So Bhagavan calls the materialistic people avipaschitaha. Avipaschitaha means non-discriminating, unwise people, unintelligent people. So avipaschitaha pravadanti. So why are they unintelligent? They are unintelligent because they think that material accomplishments alone can give one this peace, security, and happiness. Material accomplishments alone can make life successful. And we can also say they are avivekinaha. Avivekinaha. So they don't have the viveka, they don't have the discrimination because they have not understood the need for this inner growth, spiritual growth. So they are focused on pursuing arthaha and kamaha, and if at all they come to dharmaha, it is for the purpose of more arthaha and kamaha. So they don't have this vyavasayatmika buddhi. Clarity of vision is not there about the real goal of life and the means to achieve that goal, and therefore their inner growth is not there. They don't have this inner growth, or they have stunted inner growth, and therefore they stagnate spiritually. Avipaschitaha. And then the second adjective Bhagavan uses for these people is in the second line of the 42nd verse, where he says Vedavadarataha. Vedavadarataha. So Vedavada means the statements of the Vedavada. Vedic statements, especially of the Karma Kanda, they are called Vedavada. And Rataha means they engage in, they revel in. They are called Rataha. So Vedavada Rataha means they engage in, they revel in all of these Vedic statements that talk about these karmas for the accomplishment of material goals. And these are the Rajasa karmas that we talked about. The Kamya karmas, the Sakama karmas, the Rajasa karmas. So they are really karmis and not karma yogis. They are doing karma for the sake of material growth, for the sake of lokajayaha, not for the sake of manojaya. So they have studied the Veda. They have Shraddha in the Veda, all right. And they can even quote the Veda to back up their statements. But they have only studied the Karma Kanda. So they have missed the most important teachings of the Veda in terms of Manojaya and in terms of Mokshajaya. They have only looked at the Veda from the point of view of Lokajaya. So they don't have the inner growth, they don't have the qualifications. And therefore they just remain engrossed in the Karma Kanda. They are Veda Vadarataha. They remain engrossed in the performance of these Rajasa karmas, Kamya karmas. And they are looking for various results in the world. And they are Artha Kama Pradhana. Their goal in life is only Artha and Kamaha. And if at all they come to Dharma from the Veda Purva, from the Karma Kanda, it is for the sake of Artha and Kamaha. So they, in elsewhere, Bhagavan says that there are four kinds of bhaktas. The Artha bhaktas, Artharthi bhaktas, Jignasu bhakta, and the Jnani bhakta. So they come under the Artha or the Artharthi bhaktas. Meaning that Artha bhakta is one who thinks about Bhagavan when there is some trouble. And so he wants to get rid of the trouble, so he does some puja, some homa, some ritual, some prayer, some worship. Or Artharthi Bhakta is one who is focused on Artha and Kama accomplishments, and he makes Bhagavan like a business partner in his business. And therefore he worships Bhagavan for the sake of Artha and Kama. He is Artharthi Bhakta. So Vedavadarataha, these people are either Artha or Artharthi Bhaktas, who are worshipping Bhagavan to get rid of some trouble or to accomplish something new in the world. And then the third adjective Bhagavan says is na anyad asti iti vadinaha, in the last part of of verse 42. Na anyat asti iti vadinaha. So they say that there is nothing else in the Vedas other than these rajasa karmas, karmas for material accomplishments. And they say, don't waste your life. Use it to do all these karmas for the sake of artha and kamaha, and do dharma or engage in dharma or all of these prayer, worship, etc. for the sake of artha and kamaha in this life or in future lives. So they say, na anyad asti iti vadinaha. There is nothing else other than this artha, kamaha and dharma for the sake of artha and kamaha. There is nothing else other than lokajaya. And if you talk to them about the need for higher spiritual goals, if you talk to them about spiritual growth or manojaya, inner growth, or if you talk to them about how artha and kamaha or dharma for the sake of artha and kamaha, how all of these, the karma phala is all going to be limited, dukkha mishritatvam, atripti karatvam, bandhakatvam. If you talk to them about pursuit of moksha being the parama purushartha, they are not interested. Na anyad asti iti vadinaha. They say there is nothing else. I am very clear about my goals. I have vyavasayatmika buddhi. I have to pursue artha and kamaha is what he says. Out of ignorance, he is saying that. And then what else Bhagavan says about them? They are kamatmanaha in verse number 43. Bhagavan says kamatmanaha means they are an embodiment of materialistic desires. If materialistic desires could grow hands and legs, then it would resemble these people that Bhagavan is talking about. And Bhagavad Pada uses an adjective. They are kama paraha, means they consider kamaha to be the highest purushartha. They are kama paraha. They give predominance only to materialistic pursuits at the expense of their inner growth, or at the expense of stagnation, spiritual stagnation. So basically, they are materialistic people who have no concern at all for inner growth. And what else are they? Bhagavan uses the adjective, the fifth adjective is swarga paraha. And what is the highest material accomplishment in this world? Highest material accomplishment is going to swarga. And therefore, swarga becomes their highest goal. Because in swarga, all of the sensory pleasures and everything is available in abundance. And therefore, they make going to Swargaha their highest goal. So they are busy doing karmas. Why? So that they can gain punya. Why? So that with that punya they can go to Swarga. So Bhagavad Gita itself gives a warning that tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam kshine punye bhartyalokam vishanti. So you may gather a lot of punya and go to Swarga, but then with every sensory pleasure you are experiencing in Swarga, you are exhausting a little bit of your punyam. And when your punyam is exhausted, kshine punye martyalokam vishanti, Bhagavan will say this. It's going to come later. So in spite of this warning that there is no green card, no citizenship, no permanent residence in Swargaloka, they still make Swarga, which is Anityaha. The Swargaloka Vasa is always Anitya. They still make this Anitya Vastu their primary goal of life. So Bhagavan, having given these 5 adjectives for these materialistic people, what all did Bhagavan say? Avipaschitaha, the unwise people, Vedavadarataha, who revel in the words of the Karma Kanda, which talks about materialistic karmas. And na anyadasti tivadinaha, there is nothing else other than material accomplishments. And kamatmanaha, they are kamaparaha, paraha, kama paraha, for them kamaha purushartha is the highest goal. And swarga paraha, for them swarga is the highest goal. So such people say, Bhagavan says, what do they say? What do they say? In the first line of the 42nd verse, we have Yam Imam Pushpitam Vacham. So Imam Vacham Pravadanti. They say these words, these words. And what kind of words are they? Pushpitam. Imam Pushpitam Vacham Pravadanti. They say these flowery words that are pleasing to hear. Because they talk about all these karmas that the Vedas talk about, they quote the Vedas, and they say that if you do this, you will get wealth. If you do this, you will get position. If you do this, you will get business success. If you do this, your child's problem will be solved. If you do this, you will get swarga. So all of these types of flowery words they use. So they are not only convinced themselves, but they also spread their philosophy. So Imam Pushpitam Vacham Ravadanti. They talk about this to others also. They convince others with their flowery words. And they say, forget all this Vedanta. Why Vedanta for now? Do that. You can do that. You can do that later. It is not meant for you. You can do that later after retirement. Perhaps you can think about it. But for now, just to do this karma, I'm telling you that will solve your problem or it will help you accomplish something. So they don't come to the spiritual teachings at all. They don't come to any of these teachings that talk about inner growth or knowledge, moksha, etc. And if at all they come to anywhere near the spiritual teachings, they may come to something like doing yoga or pranayama, etc. Why? Again, because they want to be free of stress. So they will do pranayama and yoga. Why? To be free of the stress that they incur in the pursuit of the artha and kama. To be a more efficient doer of all of these karmas for the sake of artha and kama, they may come and touch some spiritual aspects. That's all. That is where it ends. Their primary purpose is still artha and kama and not inner growth. So Krishna is warning us here so that we can be alert, saying that their speech will be like an advertisement. That they will try to convince you that you do these things and then you will gain all of this. This is exactly what advertisements also talk about. They talk about the benefits, they talk about the users of the product and how happy they are and how much success they have accomplished and all of that. So they use all these flowery words. Bhagavan says, don't get baited by them. And again, what kind of words? They say, Bhagavan says, Kriya Vishesha Bahulam in verse 43, second line. Kriya Vishesha Bahulam. So if you look at it, Kriya means rituals, karmas. And Vishesha means variety. And Bahula means saturated with. So Kriya Vishesha Bahulam means those words, their words are saturated with varieties of karmas. And what kind of karmas? All of these Rajasa karmas. And Rajasa karmas itself can be again classified as two. They are either Kamya karmas. Kamya karmas means karmas for the varieties of Lokajaya, like wealth, security, position, children, swarga, etc. So, for example, do Avahanti Homa, and if you do that, then you will have a good business, you will get lots of clients. Or the other classification of the Rajasa karmas is Prayaschitta karmas. Prayaschitta karmas or Parihara karmas. When you are having a certain difficulty in life, then it is due to some past papa, and to counter that papa, you can do such and such a karma. You can do this, and your family problem will go. If you do this, your professional problem will go, etc. So what are these karmas for? Kriya Vishesha Bahulam, they talk about these, their words are saturated with varieties of karmas. And what are they for? Bhoga Ishwarya Gatim Prati. They are for the sake of Bhoga and Aishwarya. So bhoga means for the sake of possessions, for one's own pleasures and comforts and enjoyments is bhoga. It represents kama purushartha. And Aishwarya here refers to power and status and position and wealth, and that represents Artha Purushartha. So Bhoga Aishwarya is Kamartha, Kamartha Gatim Prati, we can say. So Gatihi means Praptihi or attainment. So they are meant for attaining various Artha and Kamaha accomplishments. And they don't ever talk about karmas for chitta shuddhihi. All of it is for artha and kamaha only. Bhoga and aishwarya. And what else? And what else are these words? What Bhagavan uses another adjective, janma karma phala pradam. Again, it's an adjective for vacham. Pushpitam vacham vadanti. What kind of vacham? What kind of words? Janma karma phala pradam. So those words that will lead a person to engage in karmas whose phalam is more births. More births. Janma is the karma phala. Janma is the karma phala of such karmas. They are janma karma phala. So these words, they result in a person engaging in these karmas whose phalam is continuation of births, continuation of samsara. So punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam chakram, samsara chakram will continue. They will go round and round in the whirlpool of samsara. Like Swamiji says, Abhimanyu knew how to get into the chakravyuh, but he did not know how to get out. So similarly, these people know how to get in. With all of these karmas, they know how to get in, but they don't know how to get out of this samsara chakra. So again, inner growth is not a priority at all. And if we talk to such people about the Gita class, they say, yes, I know that I have to study the Gita, but right now I am very busy. So what are you busy with? If you look into it, it will be purely arthaha pursuits or kamaha pursuits, and there'll be a lot of dharmaha, but again, it will be purely for arthaha and kamaha. And then in this way, the whole life goes. Like we saw, Alastavat Krida Saktaha, Varunastavat Varuni Saktaha, and we can say middle-aged Tavat Arthaha Saktaha, Kamaha Saktaha, and Vruddhastavat Chinta Saktaha. In old age, he's worried about everything he has accumulated basically. So the root cause of this disease of samsara, that is this Atma Ajnanam, is not addressed at all, and therefore they just perpetuate their samsara, janma karma phala pradam. So this verse is talking about such unintelligent religious materialists who only pursue and advocate karmas for material growth. And they speak in a very flowery language that they're convinced about themselves and they also convince other people about it. It feels pleasant to them and it also feels pleasant to the others who are listening to it. And the result is that they continue in samsara, janma karma phala pradam vacham. Now, here there is the word yam. Yam, imam, pushpitam, vacham. So, yam is a relative pronoun. It means the words these people speak about. These people speak of all these words, flowery words. So Bhagavan is saying those flowery words. He's ending it with that. And that is why these two verses also are not complete until we take the 44th verse also into account, because it will then complete the sentence about such flowery words. What is the effect of them? Bhagavan talks about in the next verse that we will read. Verse number 44. भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानाम्
भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानाम्
तयापहृतचेतसाम्
तयापहृतचेतसाम्
व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः
व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः
समाधौ न विधीयते.
समाधौ न विधीयते.
So if we do the padachhedaha, भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानां तया तया अपहृतचेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः समाधौ न विधीयते. Bhagavan says na vidhiyate. Na vidhiyate means does not take place. So what does not take place? Bhagavan says buddhihi na vidhiyate. In the second line we have buddhihi na vidhiyate. The vision does not take place. Vision does not take place. And what kind of vision? Vyavasayatmika buddhihi na vidhiyate. The clear vision that we talked about in the earlier words. The clear vision regarding the goal of life and the means to achieve that goal. Such a clear vision does not take place for such materialistic people. And we can also say the clear vision of the Atmagyani also that we talked about, where all the misconceptions and wrong notions about who I am, those are removed. Even the clear vision of an Atmagyani does not take place for such people. So neither the clear vision of the Karma Yogi comes about, nor the clear vision of the Atmagyani. The clear vision of the Karma Yogi is with regards to the goal of life and the means to that goal. The clear vision of an Atmagyani is with regards to who am I. So both of these visions do not take place for such a person. Where does this vision not take place? Samadhu na vidhiyate. So samadhu is the saptami of the word samadhihi. But here the word samadhihi does not mean the samadhihi in terms of the samadhihi that one may achieve in dhyana avastha, etc. But here Bhagavad Pada clarifies in his bhashya that samadhihi refers to the mind. Because the mind is the locus where all the experiences are placed, where the world is placed for one's experience. The world has to be loaded in one's mind for one's experience. And therefore the mind itself is called samadhihi. It's a special meaning of the word samadhihi. And therefore, in the mind of such people, the clear vision either of the Karma Yogi or the Atmagyani does not take place. The Vyavasayatmika Buddhi does not take place. And whose mind? Bhagavan says, Bhoga Ishwarya Prasaktanam. So again, Bhogaha means Kamaha, pursuit of Kamaha, possessions for pleasures, enjoyments, and comforts. And Aishwaryaha refers to Artha Purusharthaha, those who are pursuing wealth, power, etc. Prasaktaha means those who are attached to Bhogaha and Aishwarya. So for such people, the clarity of vision does not take place. Vyavasayatmika buddhi does not take place. So their goal is arthaha, which is earn on weekdays. So climb the corporate ladder on weekdays. And then kamaha, bhogaha, or kamaha, enjoy on weekends. So engage in sensory pleasures on weekends. And then on Sundays, if they go to a temple, what will they pray for? They will pray for the continuation of this good life that involves this arthaha and kamaha pursuit. Earn and enjoy. Let me earn well and let me enjoy well. This is their vision of life that they are praying for. So if dharmaha is used, it is dharmaha for the sake of this arthaha, climbing the corporate ladder, and kamaha, enjoyments. So they are apahrita chetasam. They are bhogaishwarya prasaktanam. They are apahrita chetasam, meaning that their minds are robbed away. Apahrita chetasam means their minds are robbed away. They are they are robbed away. That means that if at all, if somebody has got these arthaha and kamaha desires, then a certain amount of it is fine. That one has some arthaha and kamaha desires, and that is Veda also accepts that. Veda also allows that. But if those are the sole purpose of the life, that is what is being criticized here. At the expense of one's inner growth, not having one's inner growth as their priority at all. So their minds are hijacked by by these pursuits of artha and kama. And they don't see the limitations of these pursuits because their minds are they are apahrita chetasam, meaning their viveka shakti is covered. They are not able to see the difference between moksha purushartha and why that is nitya as opposed to all the other three purusharthas that are anitya. So apahrita chetasam. And what are their minds hijacked by? So Bhagavan says taya apahrita chetasam. So taya refers to vacha. If you remember, we carried over the yam from the previous verse. So yam was carried over, means such words. That was carried over. The relative pronoun was carried over from the previous verse. So this taya connects to the yam. So yam vacham te pravadanti taya vacha. So by such flowery words that they talk about, by the flowery words that are saturated with a variety of karmas. So lokajayaha, their minds have been hijacked. Their minds are covered. And and they don't have clarity with regards to what is to be achieved. That's the main problem. So when there is no clarity, then the mind is easily baited. Because like we said in the multiple choice question, every option looks worthwhile of pursuit. So when a person is already confused and unclear, when the person is given more choices, then it only increases the confusion. For example, in the multiple choice question, if you already given four choices, if we add four more choices there, then even those will look worthy possible solutions for this person. So, so earlier this person, if he was a pure materialist, he might have just focused on laukika karmas. The laukika means to achieve laukika goals. But now he has come to the Veda. Now the Veda talks about not known means to achieve known goals, because that you can know from the world itself. The Veda talks about unknown means to achieve known goals. Like you can do putra kameshti yaga to get a child. Or the Veda also talks about unknown means to achieve unknown goals. Like doing jyotishtoma yaga to achieve swarga. So now you have added more of these karmas, Rajasa karmas into the mix, and therefore everything looks worthy of pursuit to such a person. Like Pujya Swamiji says, it's like taking a child to a toy store. When you take a child to the toy store, he grabs this, and then suddenly he sees something else, he grabs that, and finally he's got five or six things in his hand, and he's not willing to let go of anything. So this person is like a child in a toy store. His mind is baited by everything, enticed by everything. And so for such people, Bhagavan says, Samadhau vyavasayatmika buddhihi na vidhiyate. So for such a person, the clarity of vision does not arise. So how does this clarity of vision express? The clarity of vision expresses in you can say in three ways. The clarity of vision expresses for a karma yogi in terms of jnana yogyata ichha, in terms of chitta shuddhi ichha. in terms of desire for a pure mind, and therefore he takes up karma yoga. All this clarity of vision expresses in the for a jnana yogi. Once this karma yogi becomes mature, he becomes a jnana yogi. The clarity of vision expresses in the form of ichha for this jnanam, atma jnana ichha, and therefore for that he takes up jnana yoga. And eventually, for an Atmajnani, the clarity of vision is with regards to who I am by removal of all the misconceptions with regards to what I am not. And therefore, none of these clarity of vision arises for such a materialist. And his whole life is spent in Loka Jayaha. He never comes to Mano Jayaha or Moksha Jayaha. So here in these last few verses, Bhagavan has contrasted that a karma yogi matures into clarity of vision with regards to the goal of life and the means to achieve the goal, and also eventually comes to jnanam and comes to the clarity of vision of an atmajnani. But a materialist ends up with numerous confusions and misconceptions and does not get this clarity at all. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi na vidhiyate. So now in the next verse again, Bhagavan continues on this theme and says that such karmas will keep the sakama bhakta in samsara, because he is using the Veda all right, but he is not making the right use of the Veda. The appropriate wise use of the Veda is for manojayaha. That is the right application of the Veda. But he uses it for lokajayaha. That's the wrong application. We will read the next verse. We will enter that also. Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha
त्रैगुण्यविषया वेदाः
Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna
निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन
Nirdvandvo Nityasattvasthaha
निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थः
Niryogakshema Atmavan.
निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान्.
We do the Padachhedaha. Traigunya Vishayaha. Traigunya Vishayaha Vedaha. So the Visarga has to come. Traigunya Vishayaha Vedaha. Nistraigunya Bhava Arjuna. Nistraigunya Bhava Arjuna. Nirdvandvaha Nityasattvasthaha Niryogakshemaha Atmavan. Niryogakshemaha Atmavan. So Bhagavan says, Vedaha bhavanti. We can supply a verb like bhavanti. So Vedaha bhavanti. So the Vedas are. So Bhagavan is specifically referring to the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas here when he says Vedaha bhavanti. Vedas are. And Traigunya Vishayaha. So Traigunya refers to material or worldly accomplishments. And Vishayaha means subject matter. So Traigunya Vishayaha means one whose subject matter is material accomplishment. So according to the materialists who seek bhogaha and aishwaryaha, kamaha and arthaha, wealth and power, according to these people, the Vedas have their subject matter that is related to material accomplishments. So we also agree that the Vedas talk about these material accomplishments. We don't deny that. But we say that the Vedas don't just talk about material accomplishments. They just don't talk about lokajayaha. They talk about lokajayaha, all right, but not only about lokajayaha. They talk about manojayaha and mokshajayaha also. They talk about spiritual inner growth and then the attainment of liberation and or moksha. They have much more. But then these materialists only look for what they want to get. For example, if I make a shopping list and I go to a particular store, then I will look for the things that are in my shopping list. I will, even though the store has got other things, I will not look for that. So they have gone to Veda with a particular shopping list, and they are only looking for those things in the Veda. Vedas talk about other things, but they are not interested. That's why Bhoga Ishwarya Prasaktanam Bhagavan said. So this will keep them in samsara. So they will be stuck in the various limited means and ends that the karmas have. So they are the artha bhaktas and the artharthi bhaktas who are coming to the Veda purely for the purpose of lokajaya. So they will remain in samsara. So Bhagavan doesn't explicitly say here that they will remain in samsara, but Bhagavan is implying that because Bhagavan is telling Arjuna that Bhagavan is saying Bhava means you be. Bhagavan is saying you be. And you be what? Bhagavan says Nistraigunyo Bhava. Nistraigunyo Bhava. So, unlike these unintelligent materialists who are only pursuing the Loka Jayaha, which will keep them in samsara, unlike them, be a Karma Yogi. Be a Karma Yogi who is not pursuing these karmas for Loka Jayaha, but Nistraigunyo Bhava. Nistraigunyo Bhava means, as we said, Traigunyam means all the material accomplishments. So be one from whom these prayers and karmas for material accomplishments are gone. Nirgatam traigunyam yasmat saha nistraigunyo bhava. Means nishkamo bhava. Meaning be one from whom these prayers and karmas for material growth are dropped, are reduced, and then finally dropped. So let your karmas and prayers and your use of the Veda, let it be for inner growth. Let it be for Manojayaha and Moksha Jayaha. For example, we eat curd rice with pickle. So when we eat curd rice with pickle, curd rice is the main dish and pickle is the side dish. That's why pickle is there in small quantities, whereas curd rice is in a larger quantity. We need to be clear about what is the main dish and what is the side dish. If we reverse that, then we will have problems. So these materialistic people, they may not be having, either they are only eating pickle or they are having a very less curd rice with that pickle, lots of pickle. So that is what causes this heartburn finally. The heartburn of samsara is a result of that. So Bhagavan says, get your priorities right. Eat more of curd rice and less of pickle. So nishkamo bhava. So have the pursuit of moksha also and make that a priority and gradually reduce the pursuit of karmas for the sake of artha and kamaha. Give Shreyas the priority and reduce the priority for Preyas. So Shreyas refers to Moksha Purusharthaha, Preyas refers to Arthaha and Kamaha, and Dharmaha for the sake of Arthaha and Kamaha. And therefore Bhagavan is saying, make time for the Gita class, make time for the Bhagavad Gita class, make time for your spiritual pursuits, make time for your inner growth. Because one's peace, security, and happiness, as we have seen, does not depend on the material accomplishments. Peace, security, and happiness is primarily a function of one's inner growth. And therefore, may one make one's inner growth a priority. We will continue this in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.